So these are the objects as they were before. Probably all of you are used to looking at details, so maybe you see the differences with the new ones, but I'm sure that maybe who is not really used to looking at the little details might say, okay, they are quite similar. They still have well, shapes that can be used in the same way. They have colors, they have bodies, they have faces as well. So yes, faces. Because the first requirement of the client was, yes, you have to keep the faces. Because they already started the whole contacts, getting contacts with the provider, with the distribution and everything all over the world, and what they were saying, okay, we like the faces. What's happening now, actually, when the products are in the shelves, is that most of the people say, I can't do stuff with a face that looks at me. So I don't know why they wanted really to keep the faces, but that's the first requirement. So we had to deal with it. Then we started looking at the product itself. So we were really going into details and looking at how these products were made, because they were made in China and proudly designed in Italy, as everybody's really saying these days. But if you really wanted to look at the details, you could see that it was quite crappy, the product itself, so we really had to change the whole thing. We started by having the mold and everything, but we had to throw away quite everything because it was really bad, in bad shapes, the product as it was. It had security issues, low quality and bad assembly. The glue was shitty and nobody could actually use it. So it was quite a disaster as a product, but it had quite a nice face actually. So we said, okay, we're up to, we want to do this project, it's really fun, we like it, but at one condition. We have to approach the project as if we can change the social role of these objects, because we didn't want us to make some styling project. We wanted to try to say to the client, okay, you have this great opportunity, because sex is something that we all think it's a common topic, but actually it's one of the most important things in our lives, and we have to change the perspective, and we have to start thinking differently about sex in our work, in our lives. So we said, okay, it's a great opportunity for innovating in one field that needs a lot of innovation and a lot of attention. So I said, okay, we are up for it. And we started doing a research, but research with the users. Also because we say, okay, Italy is a country where open-minded and everything, we are kind of familiar familiar with sex and everything. But if this is the only country in the world where we do not call them sex shops, but we call them sexy shop. Because all over the world you can find a sex shop, here you can find a sexy shop. Probably just too much. So yes, it's not, it's a hot topic for real. So we have to be really careful speaking about sex in Italy. And the client itself, probably if they are coming to you and ask you, I want to do a sex toy, they must be open-minded and they must be willing to do something about sex. But they started asking questions, They started asking, okay, probably we have to make sure that our brand is not going to be about pornography. So they wanted to make sure this concept at the beginning. They were really, really afraid of being perceived as a porn brand. And so, as you can see, the client itself was not so into these kind of things. Second question, second requirement. We do not produce sex toys, we will do pleasure toys. Meaning, okay, we are not really, sure that we're going to do something for sex for real. We're going to do something for pleasure. So, something quiet. Please do not go too much into it again. Third requirement. We will never sell our objects in a sexy shop. Sexy. And they have to be seen in collect. So the positioning was quite, sure. They didn't want to be perceived as an object for doing actually what they were meant for. So everything started being quite difficult at the beginning, because we were thinking to give a new social role to these objects, but then the client itself were starting to, to stop us because they didn't want to go so much into it. So what we thought at the beginning was that we had to redesign an object, but then I said, okay, let's not design an object anymore. Let's try to redesign the orgasm itself. So you were probably thinking of redesigning the orgasm today, but we're not going to redesign the orgasm. I'm sorry. So how did we do this kind of process? Surely we started going on internet. Yahoo answered, the best way to look at details. And what all these objects have in common? You can try to guess, I guess. Yes, they are the most used objects for having orgasms. I don't know, probably you are wondering what to do with a washing machine, because it's quite difficult. Or what to do with a Mary, the Holy Mary probably, but that's actually the most used in Italy, because we are kind of religious people. Yeah, we have a mission. So yes, so this actually, yes, it's Yahoo answer. It's something which might be silly to look at the Yahoo answer, but quite often they have the most sincere answers also in the internet. So what can we get from this chart? That for sure, most of the women do not buy things for doing that stuff. So probably something is wrong with the products that are on the market, on the shelves right now. So yes, it's important to do something new, something important, and something useful for them. So we said, okay, let's try to involve the final users in the design process. Because probably you all know that the co-design process is kind of a long process and a difficult one, and it needs quite a lot of time. Because, you have to prepare activities for the final user. You have to stay together in one single room sometimes for even more days, 1, 2, 3, 4 days, and you have to hope that the user is really able to help you at the end. I mean, when it comes to these topics, it's not really easy to find even people that are willing to speak about these topics. And as I was mentioning before, the client itself wasn't in the same direction we were going. So he probably just wanted us to make a redesign, to go for a styling process. So we imposed this kind of approach, and we said, okay, no, we want to do a co-design research, and we want to try to involve the final users. But we had to do it in one day because, you know, this is what we could do. So we invited a few people. These are wonderful girls. We learned a lot of things from them. They are actually the most important insights that we had from them. Why? Because they are able to look at sex in a completely different way. They are a group of women that are called La Valigia Rossa, the red luggage, I guess. And what they do is that they go like Herbalife. I don't know if you know it. Well, they go to every single door of people, like they knock to your door, and they ask you, do you want to do a meeting with your friends? And they stay at home, and they just talk about sex. The business model is quite weird because they actually are there to sell products, but if you buy at least 250 euros of products, you do not pay the consultancy, the sex consultancy, and it never happens that people pay less than 250 euros at their meetings. Well, what's important about these people is that they understood that women like to talk about sex among themselves. They like to share insights, and their sexual life is not really happy and easy as we might think. Actually, most of the women are not having a good and healthy sexual life, and they know everything about that. But they are sexologists. They are just women who like to talk about sex, and they know really well women. So they came to us and said, okay, we really want to innovate in this field because there is a huge need about this. Second, let's say, co-designer was a girl. This is not the girl, actually. I didn't find a picture of her, but this is her boutique. She has a sexy boutique in Genova. Genova is my hometown, and it's another weird city because I don't know if you've been to Genova, but there's a lot of prostitution, there's a lot of sex going on all over the city. And the role of this lady, well, the owner of this place, is really important because she's trying to teach women to have a healthy sexual life. She's trying to and organize meetings in this shop talking about sex. And she knows exactly what to sell to these people and what they're looking for. So she's a distributor. She knows exactly what the people are willing to buy and what they're not willing to buy. Third user, Alessandra Canella, she was a friend of mine. She was in China with me. She was my classmate, and she's done a thesis on how to improve and support Chinese women in their sexual life. So she really understood how a really small group of people with a completely different culture could use this kind of products and this kind of objects to improve their sexual life. And go fast with this. A psychologist and sexologist, fundamental, because she could really give us some hints about how the brain works and how the connection with the sex are made in our brains. And then we had also a bunch of guys from IET, and they were doing a thesis on sex and how the new generation are changing their perspective on sex. So they were representing, let's say, the young people in this field. And finally, Sophia, she's a writer and blogger, and she's a tester of sex toys. So she does that as a job also. So what do we get from this disco design workshop? Three fundamental angles. We could, in this way, cluster them into three main groups. If I'm not too boring or technical, just stop me, but I think this is the main point of the project. Because we could understand what the experts, so when I say expert, I mean the psychologists, sexologists, and the consultants. So what do experts think about sexuality and sex in women? So their point of view from a scientific perspective. We could understand the distributor's point of view. So the point of view who sells products, so who sees in the real life how these kind of behaviors are real or are going on in the shops, in the action part actually. And finally, the users. So what's the point of view of the target we are trying to reach? So we started by asking them, what is the orgasm for you? It seems an easy question actually, it seems easy to answer, but we started by talking about orgasm at the beginning, but we ended up talking about science, as you will see. Because it's not all about emotions, it's really a lot about mind and brain and thinking and reflecting about our actions. So I'm going to tell you from the point of view of the co-design, what is an orgasm? Of course, it's a physical reaction, so we all know that it has to end up somehow with a physical reaction. But most of all, most importantly, it's psychological. So you have to be absolutely open-minded. Otherwise, you will never reach an orgasm in your life. This is the first and most important starting point of the project. And probably this is the most difficult part also for women, to be open-minded. So culture, you know, life in general really changes you. And most of the people think to be open-minded, but as I showed you from the beginning, even the client that asked us to produce and to design sex toys was not really open-minded. So you have to reach a sexual wellness. This was another fundamental concept that I didn't even know before. You have to feel well with your sexuality. You have to understand that you are fine and you can do whatever you want. And this is impossible to reach if you're not open-minded, as I was saying before. So, actually, again, it doesn't matter the object you use. You can use whatever you want. You can really use the washing machine, you can use the Holy Mary, whatever. It doesn't matter. You just have to use an object and work with it until you reach a breaking point. But this breaking point has to be reached just if you're open-minded. I said it at the beginning. Otherwise, you will never reach it. You can stay there hours, days, as you want, but you will never reach it. After breaking point, after getting there, you have to stop thinking completely. Otherwise, everything stops. So at this time, when it's when it comes back, the physical reaction. So when women start having this kind of feelings, men at the same time start rushing, start going faster and faster and faster. No, that's the wrong thing to do. You have to be rhythmic. You have rhythm and go slowly, or well, the same speed that she wants. You don't have to change it. So the same rhythm that you use when you reach that point. So you don't have to reach it, to change it. So you can get two kinds of orgasm: the inner one and the external one, I would say. So most of the people know this object. This object is actually the most scaring thing I've seen in my life. And women that use this affirm with real security that this over being human. No human can have this kind of physical movements and everything. So the result of this object, which became famous with Sex and the City, I mean, it's quite famous. If you name the bunny, most of the women in the world know this object. So it's quite famous. And people that use this said, okay, either you use it with your mate, so in this way he doesn't feel poor because he will never reach these kind of moments, or we don't use it at all because it causes false expectation at all. So, but the most important thing is that all the objects that are used for having orgasm by yourself are like this. Most of them. I actually have few. I have more. The result is that most of the women do not even get close to this object because they are scared. They really do not want to get, to not even touch it because it resembles first the real thing, which is something that scares them from the beginning. So they do not want to absolutely see it. And secondly, you have to buy it in places where everything is like this. So you have just to cross the door and enter in a place where everything is like this. It's really scary. And it's not easy for most of the people to get close to the objects. So as I said, it's all about the brain. It has to be healthy, and you have to be completely free from thoughts, and you have to stay quiet and do not think too much about what makes you feel bad. You just have to think about what makes you feel well. So now I'm going a little bit into detail. The brain is divided into three layers. The most external one is the Neocortex, which is responsible for making you desire to have children. So at a certain age, every woman, yes, is mostly driven by this kind of layer of the brain. The second layer is the limbic system, which is the responsible of emotions and thoughts. Unfortunately, most of the women have this layer too developed, and they cannot really go into, real sex because they think too much. And the third layer, the inner one, is the reptilian brain, so the one that really is dedicated to passion and instinct. So what happens is if the first layer, so the emotion is to develop compared to the other, actually you feel a feeling of regret, frustration, and guilt. So yes, you maybe get to a point where you can have sex once in your life, and after having had it, you just feel regretful. No, I shouldn't have done it. Oh my God, what did I do? Oh my God, no. Frustration, because maybe you think you were not able to do that. And guilt. In Italy, especially in Italy, a lot of women have this layer completely developed. And most of the women feel regretful after having sex, or after even thinking of buying an object like this. Because we're in Milan now, so it's somewhere mobile, well, we are open-minded and everything, but Italy is full of people from different social areas, social, you're listening. So instead, what happens when the other part, the reptilian one, is too developed compared to the other one? It comes to dominance, compulsiveness, aggression. This, you might think it's useless for designing an object like this, but it was really, really important and interesting to know these kind of things. Because we immediately understood that the women that we are looking for are not so simple as we thought at the beginning. They have different layers, different emotions, different everything, and they have to be treated in different ways if you want to reach the target for real. So we asked them to make up a story. We asked them, okay, can you invent a story with three characters, an adolescent, an adult, and an over 60, just to understand how they were seeing the women in their point of view. What came out, it was stunning, really. I just selected some, the most important personas that we were able to design. But these personas, are fiction, but they come from real experiences, from real something real, because this lady, Olga, well, it's a fiction name, it doesn't exist for real, but her experience is a real one. And she was 85 years old, and she already had 6 children in her life, can you believe it? And but she never had an orgasm in her life. So at the age of 80, the doctor told her, you know, your back is painful, you should do some swimming in a swimming pool. You should go swimming and do some sport, which might help you with it. So she went swimming at age, I remind you, she was 80, and she had 6 children before. So she went swimming, she was feeling well, and she saw at the end of the swimming, she saw a, come si dice jacuzzi. Okay. So she just got into the jacuzzi, and accidentally the water went right there. And so she had her first orgasm in her life at age of 80. And she couldn't understand what was happening, you know. Because, oh my God, what's going on? And I'm too old for these things, and she couldn't understand it. And she was so intelligent that after this experience, she went to a doctor. Not because she was feeling unhealthy or ill or sick, but because she wanted to understand more. In fact, she didn't go to a simple doctor. She went to a psychologist, a sexologist, at the age of 80. And the sexologist told her, well, it's completely normal, you finally reached it, you are happy now, you can say that you are a woman now, and I suggest you to buy a vibrator. So at the age of 80, she was going to buy a vibrator for the first time in her life. But, you know, she had to deal with things like her husband. What to tell to her husband? You never made me have an orgasm in your life, and I'm 80 and it's too late anymore because it doesn't work anymore, yours. She went to the sexologist and she said, okay, probably you should buy a massager, like an electrical one, that you can put on the table next to your bed. And she did it. So she needed some objects that could help her, but they didn't have to resemble at all to the real penis or something like a human. So she bought the first vibrator, which is a massager from Philips, I guess, something to massage the back. And she kept doing it, and she was happy. The second persona that I'm going to tell you is the most typical one. This is interesting because this is what the distributors think that the women are. So an open-minded girl, a woman, at the age of 35, that she tries also to have sex with women, and she understands by having sex with women how to handle her own body. This is a classical, well and healthy girl, healthy woman, that knows exactly how to handle her body. And this is what the distributors think that the women are. The third one, the users, so the young generation, what did they say about personas? And they pictured a completely different one. They were talking about adolescents, and well, if you understand Italian, they said, ok, sono nata nel 96, ma si scrive 69 perché mi piace essere ribaltata. It's interesting. Well, this user is interesting because she's too much into it, and she doesn't really feel the need of having sex. She just does it because this is the way that it's supposed to be, and she doesn't want to have an orgasm. She just wants to make whoever is watching her happy, and she feels stronger when men watch her having doing stuff in front of their hands. So what we understood is that what the experts understood from women is that the women that they know, that they think exist, do not reach a sexual wellness. They stay underneath it. So they have to be helped they're not fine. They need something that helps them to get well. What we understood from the distributors is that they think that the women around the world are pretty fine. They have everything they desire, and they can go to sex shops and buy whatever they want because they are able to enter in a sex shop and they do not feel guilty, regretful, or whatever. And the third one, the users, let us understood that probably there are women, girls, and children that maybe use sex like a game. So the sexual well-being is even too much. So they even went beyond it. Because they use sex like a game, not for pleasure, but just for provoking, and they never reach climax again. So both experts and users have this kind of concept. They will never reach an orgasm because they do not feel it. So what our aim with this object is to actually try to find a balance, to find something that could help all these women to have an orgasm. Also because the distributors have a lot of products that can answer to these needs. I have a few of them. Well, the sex racket you saw there before. We have these. We have these. We have these. We have these. Well, you should try this. It's really painful though. Even with your finger, you cannot stand it. It's really, really painful. You want to try it? We can make it even stronger. And you know, these objects are really scary, as you may see. But the distributors are happy with this. And they were asking us, okay, for me it's totally fine having something like this. But these objects are not reassuring for the women that feel the need to be reassured, and they are not educative for the others. I hope so. I had one with a remote control, right? I can find out who uses it. And okay, so coming to the end of the talk, what we did actually is to introduce a new completely object, which was external, because we wanted to raise the sexual wellness of the women by giving them something which is not intrusive, something that would help them get in touch with these objects without being scared. And this is the first introduction we've done. And it's completely different from the beginning, even if it still has a face, a smiley one, and a body. So the concept of the product didn't change a lot, but the perception of it changed completely, because our job has been not to change the style too much of the product, but it's to change the position, the tone of voice of them. So we've done all what we've done was all about changing the tone of voice of these objects. So by changing the use of it, the aim of these products, but also the tone of voice of the whole brand. So we try to send also messages with the right tone of voice, saying, okay, play with love, and in a funny way and in a fun way to the users who could buy these products, but they can use it for living the sexual life in a better way. So this is the result, and what I think is the most important thing about this project is that it can be used both by the 80-year-old woman that feels the need of having something which doesn't resemble a real human part, and she can put it on the table next to her bed, and the husband doesn't feel bad because he sees something on the table. But can also be used by the young 14-year-old girl that uses it as a toy for real, as something to play with, but it's not, it doesn't push her to have, let's say, improper behaviors. It's something, easier and relaxing, not really too straightforward, I would say. Well, this is the moral of the story. You can do research, workshops, a lot of things, round tables. You can talk with the users, you can talk with whoever you want. But when it comes to facing the reality, you have to treat the distributors, and you have to be really sure that both clients and distributors and the whole stages of the selling are right. Otherwise, it doesn't really work so well. So you have to be really strong and believe in what you do, because you have to convince the clients that the thing that you suggest is the right one to do. And well, if you're able to convince the client, you are a good designer, or